Today, we're talking about CSF and why it's dangerous. So you don't know what CSF is. It's actually the fluid that surrounds your brain and your spinal cord. So you actually have fluid mainly all around your body. In your spine, you have the CSF, which is known as cerebral spinal fluid. Now, although it does have the word spinal in it, it does also contain some in the brain. Now, the brain fluid is actually CSF. CSF is stuff that protects the brain and spinal cord from any major injuries and infections from getting in there and causing infections. Now, you would expect like meningitis, encephalitis, spine infections, and all of that. This is to protect your spine from any major conditions that could succumb to this. So, any major conditions can be basically, it can still happen, but it's not most likely rare for stuff like this to actually occur. So I just want everybody to know that it's pretty darn rare for it to, you know, do anything because CSF is pretty durable and, it can still cause it, but it's a very rare thing because meningitis and encephalitis is pretty rare, although recently it has become a little bit more common. So, move me out of the way. Move me out of the way. So, what is CSF? So, cerebrospinal fluid is a leak of cerebrospinal fluid, and it can occur from head trauma after surgeries around the brain, sinuses, ear, or skull, and from procedures such as a spinal tap. Now, they would usually do a spinal tap or a lumbar puncture if they suspect something like an infection in your spine, or basically like meningitis. You would definitely see that spinal tap would be used to see if that's exactly what it is. Now, cerebrospinal fluid is supposed to be clear, because that's exactly what happens. When a leak is, the cerebrospinal comes out of your nose dripping like a faucet. Um, and there's many ways. I'll show you at the end of the video how we can tell. Okay, so the lumbar puncture basically is just a test if you have a CSF leakage. It's also, well, not leakage, but it's supposed to tell if you have what they suspect. Now, they'll usually do it for meningitis and encephalitis to see if you have it. If they do the test and it looks cloudy, that means there is something wrong. It's always supposed to be clear. If cloudy, it means something is severely wrong. The body is constantly making new CSF. It will leak until it is stopped by a medical procedure. That is dangerous, guys. This is not one of those like sinus problems that stop. This continuously goes until it is evaluated by a procedure by a medical professional, which would require surgery. One of these actually might be a skull, because when you have a CSF leak, your intracranial pressure increases to the instant, like it increases a lot. Whenever it increases so much, it basically builds up the fluid, and the more it builds up from the pressure, the more likely your brain is to actually completely like the pressure will create a headache, and it can actually kill you within only a couple of hours. It's a very serious thing. Now, this is a very rare occurrence. Not a lot of people have this per year, as you will see, but it is something that does occur and can happen. It's not entirely impossible, because why would I be making this video if it's not possible? So it's not something to joke around about. Gosh. All right, wait. Yeah, symptoms of this condition. A headache that is worse when you sit up and improves when laying down. It may be associated with light sensitivity, nausea, and neck stiffness. So you can have drainage from CSF, will be from the ear, that's rarely, and from the nose, which is also rarely. So, like I said, there can be cerebrospinal fluid leak, as like it said, it's rare no matter which way it occurs. It can even come out the eyes sometimes. That's even more rare. An ear is still rare. You're more likely to have a brain aneurysm. In my opinion, I think it's more rare for that to happen than this, because again, this does occur from head trauma. So that's complications will be brain herniation, which involves the dislocation of brain tissue within the skull. Stroke, coma, CSF fasciculus, a persistent leak through the incision. Meningitis, which is a condition where the protective layers around the brain become inflamed. Brain abscess and intracranial hemorrhage, and a hematoma. Brain herniation, what is it? A cerebral herniation, the abnormal protrusion of brain tissue through an opening where there is an increased intracranial pressure. Wherein the brain is under increased pressure, the increased pressure may be due to a number of causes, including inflammation of the brain such as meningitis, a tumor, hemorrhage, and edema, swelling of the brain. So the symptoms are as followed. A brain herniation is considered a serious emergency. Signs and symptoms may include dilated pupils, headaches, drowsiness, difficulty concentrating, and high blood pressure. So you don't want to look out for those guys. Dilated pupils, that is a big warning sign that there is something very wrong with your brain. It can be pretty much that's what a brain thing is. There could be major stuff wrong with your brain because you should not have dilated pupils. It is supposed to get small with light because your pupils don't have to produce that much, because your eyes do produce light. Because in order to see in the dark, your eyes must try to put some sight out there in light for you to see, which is pretty cool. But if you have something wrong with your brain, as your eyes do have vessels that's connected to your brain, we have blood vessels that are connected to our hearts, our brains, which is all wired together. The dilated pupils is controlled by the brain as well, and so whenever your brain's not in the best shape, isn't working as its fully potential or as it should, it can lead to dilated pupils, which means your eyes and brain are not doing the best as it should be functioning. So brain herniation complications are brain death, which means you are still breathing. You can be breathing if you put on a ventilator. That means it's breathing for you. Your heart doesn't know your brain is dead. So after they take you off, you're in a comatose state, which means you're a vegetable. You can't move, you cannot talk. You are just prone to a machine beating, and you're never coming back from it. There's a 0% chance of you ever coming back from brain death, unless a big major prayer was answered. I don't even think that can happen because it's not one thing you can recover from. That's why it's very dangerous to get help if one of these things you have. If you have a brain herniation or anything that can cause brain death, it can happen within minutes to hours to seconds, whatever it may be. It depends on how severe the case is and everything like that. Respiratory or cardiac arrest, because your heart can stop from your brain because, again, your heart and brain are connected. Permanent brain damage, coma, death, hydrocephalus, which is a buildup of fluid on the brain, high blood pressure on the vessels, which may cause a stroke, issues affecting the cranial nerves. What is a stroke? Occurs when the supply of blood to the brain is reduced or blocked completely, which prevents brain tissue from getting oxygen and nutrients, which is not good, guys, because your brain does need the nutrients and the oxygen. Without that, your brain can die within a couple of minutes to seconds. It just basically, it's like how how you're choking. You need to get that because it's blocking you from getting oxygen. This stroke is preventing you from getting oxygen to your brain, which is basically like the big major part of your body that is everything is intact of because of your brain. Symptoms: if you are someone who is exhibiting symptoms of stroke, seek medical attention immediately, as different parts of the brain control different parts of the body. Symptoms will depend on the part of brain affected and the extent of damage. The main symptoms are paralysis or numbness or inability to move parts of the face, arm, leg, particularly on one side of the body, confusion including trouble speaking, headache with vomiting, trouble seeing in one or both eyes, metallic taste in mouth, difficulty in swallowing, trouble in walking, impaired coordination, dystonia and alexia and agnosia. Those are all those. So, stroke complications are paralysis or loss of muscle movement. Patient may become paralyzed on one side of the body or lose control of certain muscles, such as those on one side, face, or on one arm. Difficulty in talking or swallowing, memory loss, or thinking difficulties is also affects thinking, making judgments, reasoning, and understanding concepts. Emotional problems: stroke survivors may develop depression. Changes in behavior and self-care ability: stroke survivors may become more withdrawn and less social and more impulsive. They may need help with grooming and daily chores. Brain abscess. A brain abscess is a pus-filled swelling in the brain. It usually occurs when bacteria or fungi enters the brain with tissue after an infection or severe head injury. The symptoms of a brain abscess may develop quickly or slowly, but can include headache, which is often severe, located in one single section of the head and cannot be relieved by painkillers, changes in mental state such as confusion and irritability, Problems with nerve function, such as muscle weakness, slurred speech, or paralysis on one side of the body. A high temperature, fever of 38 C, which is Celsius, which in Fahrenheit is equal to 100.4 or above. Seizures, which AK are known as fits, as short, and nausea and vomiting. Brain abscess complications. Death occurs 5 to 32% of cases. Long-term neurological problems, such as problems with physical function, personality changes, seizures, weakness or trouble moving, scarring, developed healing, delayed healing, spread of infection, sepsis, nerve tissue or organ damage, functional impairments of organs, and paralysis. Now, sepsis is already a big killer, so if you add this after just having brain abscess, you're probably going to have a death wish. Intracranial hemorrhage. An intracranial hematoma is a collection of blood within the skull. It's usually caused by a blood vessel that bursts in the brain. It may also be caused by trauma such as a car accident or fall. The blood may collect in the brain or underneath the skull, pressing on the brain. Some head injuries. Symptoms. The symptoms get worse over time. They include headache, one-sided weakness, vomiting, seizures, decreased level of consciousness, neck stiffness, intracranial pressure, poor response to commands, and disturbed vision. Complications are stroke, loss of brain functions, physical weakness, loss of speech or imperfect speech, personality changes such as depression. A hematoma. A hematoma is a collection of blood within or around the brain that can result from a head injury. Symptoms of it are a sudden headache. The most common and most obvious sign of a hemorrhagic stroke is the sudden appearance of an intense headache. Changes in vision. A brain hemorrhage typically causes changes in vision. Numbness or weakness, difficulty speaking or understanding language, dizziness, and loss of motor control. Brain herniation, increased pressure can squeeze. Well, these are complications. So it can squeeze and push brain tissue so it moves from its normal position. A brain herniation often leads to death. Repeated bleeding. Older adults who are recovering from a hematoma have a higher risk of another hemorrhage. Older brains don't recover as quickly as younger brains. Seizures may develop after a hematoma has been treated. Death rate of a herniation is 60% to 84.6%. That's how dangerous a brain herniation is, because your brain is not, tissue is in the right spot. So thank you guys for watching today's video. If you are new, make sure to subscribe. We will drop daily videos like this month. I love you guys. Peace out, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.